Hi, I'm Linda from paperboutiquewithlinda.com. In today's video, we're going to be doing part 2 of our envelope album. Last week's video, I showed you how to make the binding for this cute little mini album, and in this week, we're going to decorate the pages and make the cover. But before we get started, I had a number of emails asking what type of paper that my sister used for making this particular mini album. She used a vintage, it's been around for a long time, die cuts with a view, and it's called the At Home Stack. The other thing I want to show you about my sisters before we continue on is when my sister die made her album, as you can see, she only matted up to, where the pocket is. I do a full mat on mine. It's totally up to you, and you can so customize this. And I wanted to show you one of her flip outs, and once again she matted up just to the pocket, and Diane did a double matting where I did more of a single mat. Last time I forgot to show you the back of her mini album, which is really very nice, and she once again did a double mat. I'm going to just slide this all the way up so you can see that, and then I'm going to slide it all the way down. I'm just going to move this out of the way, and then I'm going to bring in the album that we're going to do today. Before I get started on this album, I wanted to also mention that I used, and this is readily available, the Violet Leaf Stack, and I purchased mine at Joann Fabrics, and it's from Die Cuts with a View. So just a refresher, last week, let me bring in my sample. Last week we did the binding, or in part 1 of the video, and as you remember, this is envelope 1. This was the wider channel, and then for purposes of discussion today, this will be envelope 2. This is envelope 3, obviously envelope 4, and envelope 5. And just kind of a refresher, when you fold it, it is a valley fold, mountain fold, valley fold. We're going to decorate the pages first, and we'll make the cover last, and I'll tell you why as we go on. This is the cover. So this is the back of the first envelope, but we're going to decorate the fronts. So I'm going to move this down so you can see, and we'll start with this envelope 1. What I did, most of the envelopes, as you can see here, have a little bit of a slant to them. Instead of covering it, or cutting that little slant, I just did a rectangle, and I did 2 pieces of paper the same size. You could round these corners as well. What I'm going to do today is show you the concept. So if you're making an album any size, you'll know how to do it. So obviously, your envelope flap the size is going to vary based on the size envelope you use. And for this one, what I did is I just did the 2 pieces, but before you glue those down, you're going to put a magnet. And I like these, I'll zoom in just a little so you can see, I like these basic gray. They're called magnetic disc magnets, and there's adhesive on the back of them. So I just put one right about here and then here, and you can hear it snap. And I think it just helps hold the flaps down. And Laura Dennison, and by the way, I did a link to Laura Dennison's website. She uses a different technique to hold the flap down. So you'll want to check out her video, and she is an amazing artist. So what I did for this decoration here is I am thrilled that I was able to purchase the Anna Griffin. Let me stop and think just a moment. It's the Anna Griffin Flourish Cards and Embellishment Cricut cartridge, and that's where I cut this embellishment out of. And I used Anna Griffin's heavy metallic paper to do that. You might, if you're using your Cricut Explorer, want to use a light chipboard setting for that. So I'm going to move that out of the way. So you've covered your flap, made sure that you've put your magnet down before you've glued it on. And then for this piece, like I mentioned earlier on my sister, she just matted up to here, but I did a full mat. And you're going to go ahead and measure the size if you want a double mat, whatever works. What I did for this little opening is I used a round punch, and I think this is just an EK Success, and I just kind of centered it. You could measure, and then I just punch that out. I'll just do, this won't be perfect, but I'll just do it quickly for you. And then before you glue this down, remember you've got a magnet here. You need to put another magnet right here. And then what I like to use is the Scotch Quick Dry Adhesive. And I went around the 3 sides, so you want to make sure that you leave a pocket. And really that is all that there is to decorating. I mean, you can do double matting, you can do anything. That's envelope 1. Let's talk a little bit about envelope 2, because this is a little bit of a different technique. I can't remember which Cricut Explore cartridge I used for this butterfly, but if you go out to Design Space and just search by butterfly, you'll be able to find several butterflies. And once again, I did the cover the same way, and I remembered not to put glue on the back of this. There's a magnet here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the flip out, but I'm going to show you that down below. So here's a flip out, and we'll make that in a moment. Now this is part of the cover here, and we're going to do that last, but while I'm here I want to show you what I decorated with. I have several of Anna Griffin dies, and that's what I did for this. I actually used one of her dies, and I used that same metallic paper. I wanted it to look kind of metally. So this is the first envelope, the second envelope. Let's talk about the third envelope. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is this is also from that Anna Griffin Flourish and Embellishment cartridge. We did the same thing with the magnet. We did the same thing with the punch. Now here is a flip coming from the opposite direction. So the way that you're going to make your flips, you're going to measure your cardstock here, and then I always measure the size of the flip. If you want the flip to go all the way to the end, if you want it to be this wide, sometimes you'll want it to be this width. So you'll cut this layer, and then you'll always add, I always like to add a 1/2 inch here and score it. Then I'll go ahead, and I like to use a really heavy duty score tape on this, or glue, and then I also put like some Scotch tape over the top of it, because these flaps are going to get a lot of action. And then what you're going to do is you're going to glue this down on top of your envelope, and you're going to glue the 3 sides, and then when you're finished you have a flap. I keep calling them flaps. This is actually a flip. You'll have a flip on this side. If you wanted your flip on this side, you just turn it around. That's how we did it earlier. Well, let me show you. I'm going to move this up. This is your 4th envelope. Once again, I did the same process. This is, make sure you've got your magnets in. This is a cut apart that came with the violet leaf stack. This was a butterfly cut and embossed die that I have. I'm not sure where I got it. It was in my stash. And I want to zoom out a little, because what I want to show you is this is actually the 5th envelope. And when I was planning how I wanted this to look, I kept in mind that the very first thing that you open, you'll open it to here. So I used the same material. This again is a Cricut die from the Anna Griffin Flourish and Embellishments. This is that flip I was talking about. I'll zoom in a little. Same process. So I'm gonna go out, zoom out just a little here and show you once again to fold it. It's a little tricky. Valley fold, mountain fold, valley fold, and then it folds up. Now, what we're going to do in just a moment is I'm going to show you how to decorate the back of it and then the covers, or the cover.
Accordion.
Now we're going to go ahead and decorate the back. This is, I'm going to flip this over so you can see. Now we're going to wait to decorate the back of the first envelope and the second envelope, because we're going to want to attach the covers to the back of the second envelope, and the first envelope back we're going to have magnets, so that'll become a little bit more clear. So what I did is I went ahead and matted envelope 3, the back of envelope 3, and the back of envelope 4 and envelope 5. Well, let me just go ahead and I'm going to turn this back to the cover, okay? And the reason that we saved the cover to last, Laura Dennison does her cover earlier, but I tend to make my pages a little bit bulkier, and we want to be sure to measure how wide we want the cover. So I saved that till last. Let me show you on this prototype. What you're going to do when you have finished decorating your pages, you're going to measure the distance between these two areas. So you've got this little space here, and you want to make sure that you've got it wide enough. Let me just give you an example, and I'll show you how I did it if you were doing it for an A2 size, and you're going to measure it a little differently. What you're going to do, like if you want your cardstock to meet exactly in the middle like I did, you'll measure an equal amount. If you're using an A2 envelope, you can measure 4 1/8 by 4 1/2 will fit. But otherwise, measure where you want it to meet, and then you're going to score based on the thickness of your album. In this case, it was 3/4 of an inch. If you have a thicker album, it could be 7/8, it could be an inch, and then leave a 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to show you one other thing. I know that sounds a little bit confusing. So let's just say you wanted to have your cover overlapping in the center. Then you could measure, this piece would, in my case, would be 5 inches. Your width will vary. And see how you measure so you've got this overlap in the center. There's the exact amount of overlap. You may want your cover to overlap here. So just experiment on this amount here, but then add and score here based on your thickness, and then add the 1/2 inch. Now what you're going to do is you're going to open it up to envelope 2. And that's why I wrote on here, do not put the back on this envelope until after you've done the cover. So what you're going to do is you'll flip this around, and that's where, I'll get the smaller one, that's where the 1/2 inch will be. So you're going to glue this down, your 1/2 inch down on the back, and then go ahead and mat that. Okay? Let me show you what it looks like on the finished one so you're not confused. So here we are. Here is the second envelope, and the back is that, underneath here is that 1/2 inch, and I just matted over the top of it with another piece of cardstock. This is a sticker from one of Anna Griffin's card kits. And then when you open it up, you will see this was my 3/4 of an inch, because that's how wide my book is. So when you fold it up, it'll fold and it'll meet in the middle, if you measure it to meet in the middle. And then what I did is I just matted the front, and I used another one of Anna Griffin's cut and emboss dies. I love this set. And I just went ahead and used that same paper, and then I just cut it in half and used, let me reach out a camera here. I used my 2-way glue pen. I love this pen, and I just attached it. Now, the reason I mentioned to leave this is the back of the first one, not matted, is because you're going to put your magnets here if you want them. I put a magnet here before I put this layer on, and you can hear it. And you'll want to put a magnet here, and then you'll go back and mat this. I'm out of camera here. So when you're finished, this piece is like the first thing you're going to see. So it's important when you're planning your album that you're planning the directions, because this will be the back of the first envelope, and this will be the back of the very last envelope. So you'll want to pay attention to directions. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just cut out the pieces and use paper clips before I do any gluing. That way I know when to add magnets. So my sister had a great tip. If you know that you're going to need to add a magnet before you do the matting, put like a little yellow sticky note there so you don't forget your magnet. And then all you're going to do, you'll have your magnets here, and you can hear they'll just close. So that really is your completed mini album. And I'd like to thank you for watching, and be sure to check out lauradennison.com, and I'll have a link in my YouTube description. And also a special thank you to my sister for her mini album. She sent it to me, and it's what inspired me to go ahead and try my own and do a tutorial. So thanks for watching, and for more projects and ideas, please visit me at www.paperboutiquewithlinda.com.